I'm Margie Sullivan. I am your local sales consultant. I have been working with numerous districts across Connecticut for implementation of BA. It's been a busy year since we were added to the list in December. We're very excited to be here. I have Nicole Amador on Zoom. She's our consultant manager if any questions come up that she needs to answer. We're very fortunate today to have Will Reichraft with us. He's one of the co-presidents of Benchmark.
Yes, just want to say thank you all very much for taking the time to be here today. I understand you're extremely busy. As Marty said, the president of Benchmark, I like to joke that I've been working here since I was 12 years old, which is when my parents started the company in the basement of our house. And obviously a lot has changed since those days in the basement, but our commitment to literacy and teaching kids how to read really hasn't. It's all we do. We don't go on to science or math or anything else. This is our wheelhouse and an area that we love and that we're very passionate about. So, we're excited to share more with you regarding Benchmark Advance today. And please feel free to ask questions. Get engaged. We're here to answer anything that may come up or any concerns that you might have or questions that you might have. Because at the end of the day, this is a resource that's supposed to make your lives easier. They're complicated enough as we know. So thank you for taking the time to be here with us.
Okay, you guys ready to get started? Okay. This is the sign-in. I will show it again at the end so you can sign in, ask for any additional materials or resources or questions you have. But Benchmark Advance. We are very proud of what we've done with Benchmark Advance. We are ecstatic to be here sharing our passion with you. All green ag reports. This was a must to be on the Connecticut list. So for K through 5, we received a nearly perfect score for Gateways 1, 2, and 3. When you look deeper at the science of knowledge, or the science of reading snapshot, we received perfect scores in K through 5. So that is the basis. This program was created for the science of reading and to support teachers in the classroom. In addition to being all green on ag reports, we've won some great awards. We've received a Cody Award for Best ELA Instruction Solution, Tech and Learning Awards. But one I'm most proud of, and I'm sure it'll resonate with you and your district, is that we won Best Equity Solution for an ELA program for Benchmark Advance last year. Diversity is in the threads of everything we do at Benchmark. We want to make sure our students see themselves in the text they have in front of them, in the text you read as teachers. So you'll see that woven into the program. In addition to these awards, we're on the Connecticut list. We couldn't be here if we weren't. The Connecticut standards you can be connected to. We have an e-planner that when you go in, you put your grade level, you put your schedule. It maps the program out for you for the entire year, so your schedule is there. You can click in the box that takes you to the TRS, it takes you to your resources, but more importantly, it tracks your standards. So you can look at the standards you're teaching, but then after a period of time, you can do a standards report, so you can trace certain standards and see how many times you've taught them in a given time period. We're also an effective, proven resource. Like a lot of companies, we do independent research studies because we want to make sure the resources we're putting in the classrooms are effective. If you look at this data, the first one shows the different sizes of the districts that use our program. You can see all the students and all the districts that were using Benchmark programs were very successful. They were more successful. Than the districts without Benchmark Advance. If you look at the subgroups we have, all students were successful, but then if you look at subgroups, there were multilingual learners and our students from economically disadvantaged backgrounds, they also were successful. Many times these are the students that are not successful with some programs that do not have support for all students. We teach to all students. You have the support and the resources to meet all the needs of your students. Scarborough's Rope. Everyone familiar with Scarborough's Rope? Scarborough's Rope says we need not only to teach phonics, but we need to teach comprehension. And how it works best is they're intertwined. And if you think about it, the reason we teach phonics is for students to decode and to be able to read. Students read to be able to get meaning. You really shouldn't have one without the other. And you will see as I go through Benchmark Advanced how they're intertwined and support each other. So we're going to look at a literacy plan and see how Benchmark Advanced can fit in your literacy block. We're going to walk through the instruction. So we have our read aloud. We have our whole group and small group comprehension reading. We have our writing mini lessons. We have writing conferencing. And then we have our word study. So we have whole group lessons and then we have small group lessons for word study because we know sometimes we have kids that need a little bit extra. You will see this blue check mark as I go through the presentation. We call this our benchmark advantage. A lot of times when you look at programs, things seem very similar. The reason we put this in is because this is where we do things differently than other companies and we do it better. So these are really big deals. I want you to pay attention and I'll call them out when we get them. So let's look at our knowledge building program. On your table you have a packet of materials. If you could take out your spiral bound TRS out of the packet. And once you get it open, if you can open to the inside flap and just look at it. So Benchmark Advanced is a knowledge building program. We have 10 units. Each unit is 3 weeks long. Each unit has a single focus, so you'll see we have life science, character matters, and they're all literacy based, they're all science based, or they're all social studies based. Within that, your science and social studies are aligned to your Connecticut standards, so you can incorporate and teach grade level appropriate standards from your content area during your literacy block. And within this, the ratio of fiction to nonfiction is 50 and 50. So even though it may not be an even split in that day of instruction, within the whole program it's a 50-50 split. Now, when we look at this knowledge strand, one of the advantages of Benchmark Advanced and how it's different is that we have a vertical alignment. Everybody does the same unit. So we have life science. If you look across, so find unit 1 and look across, those are all the whole group resources that we use to teach that skill, that knowledge stream. When students are done a grade, what they do, our kinder students will take all the knowledge they learned on life science to first grade. Our first graders will then take the knowledge they learned in K and 1 to second grade. Now, third grade teachers, when your second graders come to you, they will have 3 years of knowledge building. They will have 3 years of vocabulary, so when you begin your life science unit, they will have more background than ever, and each year it builds and builds. This is truly a benchmark advantage because nobody else has the vertical alignment that we do. Next, we want to see what we're teaching to. So if you open your flap, you will see our essential questions. So look at the essential questions for life science. For kinder, it's plants and animals have needs. Why do living things have needs? Grade 3 is animal adaptations. How do living things survive in their environment? In grade 5, cultivating natural resources. How do we decide which resources we should develop? Do you see how each grade level goes deeper and deeper and deeper into that knowledge stream? And how important it is that they bring the knowledge from the year before. If you take the very next flap and turn it, it says reviews and routines. This is what we call Unit 0, or a routines unit. This is not routines of how to line up at the door, how to get ready for lunch. These are instructional routines. This is where we create anchor charts. We establish rules on collaborative conversations. How do we be respectful? How are we respectful during a collaborative conversation? What are the roles people take in that? We also review the content of the year before. So 4th grade teachers, when you start this unit, you're reviewing what the students would have learned in 3rd grade. This helps level the playing field. It gives you an idea of what the students may or may not need going into the year. And it also helps you understand if there was any summer slide with these kiddos. And it helps you create your community of learning. Because there's so much learning done together in the collaborative conversations, you can't help but build a wonderful learning environment. And as you look here, this is just some classroom video of them working during the routine unit. So they're having their collaborative conversations, and they're taking turns. Oops. That was another clip, I'm sorry. So the first thing we're going to talk about is our building knowledge and get into the text and the text we use. Then we're going to talk about our foundational skills and competencies. We teach phonics all the way up to 6th grade, so I will show you where those lessons are. And then we're going to talk about being a responsive teacher. We know that we have students with multiple needs in our classroom, and I'm going to show you how you can meet those needs with Benchmark Advance. So back to Scarborough's rope. We're going to look at the language comprehension side of the rope and how we teach that through all of the texts we have. So the first thing we're going to look at is our introduction. We have to introduce our unit. This is always day 1 of week 1 of any unit. You can see the essential question that we looked at in the fold-out tab. We do have a video that you can use to build background, to introduce. But how many times have you started a lesson, introduced something, and you have some kiddo say, why do we have to learn this? Why is this important to my life? I see laughs, yeah. Kids do it all the time. Well, that's why we include the real-world perspectives. We want them to know why this is important for them to learn, and they can identify it in their life. So here, turn and talk. How is where you live similar or different to the places shown here? Where can you go to appreciate nature in your community? Have a conversation with your partner. This is where those collaborative conversations come in. This is why the routines are so important not to skip. Because if you skip them when you start, you'll hit November and be like, oh, I can't go back, but I wish I had done them. Because it just sets you up for a successful year. So this is really activating their knowledge, and you're learning about what they know. This is also where you're going to introduce vocabulary and introduce your knowledge blueprint. The knowledge blueprint is an organizer for them to keep track of all their learning of the knowledge. So it shows the text from week 1, it shows your extended reads from week 2 and week 3, and then it has the questions we want them to focus on. Where can we encounter nature? What living and non-living things can we observe? And how do we use our senses to interact with nature? Yes?
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. Are these on slides already for us pre-made, or?
They are not.
Okay.
However, this book is, and if you want to all take out your student consumable out of your packets, this book is virtual.
This is virtual. Okay.
Yeah, so you can have it up and you can present from this. We also have a PD session where we show you how to customize resources. So one of our consultants, and I can share the Padlet with you, so if you make sure to put your email and the sign in at the end, she will teach you how to customize this so it's even better than a slide deck. So you can have things there, you can have them hidden, you can make things zoom out. So it's really fantastic that it's digitally because you can do so many things.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So on the inside, once you pass, you will see your knowledge blueprint. And this is where they're going to keep track of their learning. So once they read the text, they're going to go back and record what they learned from the text in this box. For teachers, if you're thinking about your colleagues in the younger grades, we do not expect K1 to do this. The teacher scribes for the students is virtual. How important is our knowledge vocabulary? We want to build this vocabulary as we're going through the unit, so we introduce it here. We want students to use this vocabulary when they're improving their knowledge after they've read the text. By having it here and having them write about it, they're also going to use it in their conversations. We want this vocabulary to become part of their academic conversations. And all of this is tied back to the enduring understandings. So you can see the students will fill it in after each read. We can only hope all of our students are this neat, but it is here. Students can also fill this in digitally. So they have access, they'll sign on, single sign on, they'll go in, they'll open it, and you can assign this to your students. So they can go in, open their assignments, and it's there. Now, we know what we need to teach. Now we need to look at what we're going to use to teach it. So the books that we use to teach our knowledge strands are so important because not only do we have to deliver the content, we have to make sure the texts meet the needs of our students and they're reflective of our students. So we do that with different texts. We have read alouds, we have whole group texts, and then we have small group independent reading texts. And our read aloud fits in about 10 minutes of your day. Even though it's first on our literacy block chart, it does not have to be first in your day. I have teachers that do it after lunch or after recess or at the end of the day. You can do it at any point of the day. But this is where we're modeling those metacognitive strategies. And one of the texts that you can use to do it are read aloud trait books. So these are a collection of texts from our Right Practical collection. You have one book for each knowledge strand. These books represent the underrepresented student, underrepresented authors, and illustrators. They're diverse. They reflect the students in our classroom. So you will get a collection of these. We also have our Read Aloud Handbook. So we know sometimes you won't have time to read a whole picture book. So our Read Aloud Handbook has smaller text, shorter text, for you to read connected to the knowledge topic. So this is where you're going to model the metacognitive strategies. All the instruction for it is right in here. We're also going to model fluency because as the teacher, hopefully you're the most fluent reader in the classroom. We want to model that for our students. And we're also developing oral language and oral vocabulary. How many people do read alouds right now? Everyone's hand is up. So another way and another text that we have for our read alouds are our recommended trait books. So you don't have to turn right now, you can look at it when we do it later. But in the additional resources tab, the very last tab here, when you turn it, you will find a list of recommended trait books that match the knowledge strands. We do sell those books in collections. A lot of them are books you probably already have in your classroom. You can use these for read alouds, but these are also great to have in your classroom available for your students for individual reading time. We want our students to continue to do reading so they can read independently while we're doing small group, and these are great books to have in your library for them to choose from. So we've done our read aloud. Now we're going to work on our reading vocabulary instruction. So with our whole group text, and this is the whole group text, this is what we use for our whole group instruction. We have extended reads, we have short reads. So this one happens to be an extended read. This is in week 2 or 3. It's from Esperanza Rising. It is not the whole story. We have an excerpt. And then this makes the kids want to go read the novels. When you see the author's illustrator, this shows you it's authentic text. It's not a story that was just created for the program, but these are real books that we asked to have in our program. You will also notice that there are many times where you see authors and illustrators that are diverse. These are our own voices, authors and illustrators. Jason Reynolds is in 5th grade. My son, who is now almost 16, loves Jason Reynolds. He was helping me. He saw we had Jason Reynolds in our program. You would have thought it was the best thing since sliced bread. He got very excited because he could connect to the stories. So that's really important that the text we choose connects to your students. And this is a benchmark advantage. As Beth just said, there are programs out there that are not DEI friendly, for lack of a better term. They're actually detrimental to our students, and we would never want anything like that to be put in front of our students. So we continue to include DEI texts. We have so many different texts that our students can see themselves in, from the long reads to poetry. Our students have a poetry piece every unit. We do not have a separate unit of poetry, but they have poetry every unit that is connected to the topic. We also have exploring perspective lessons. So you have lessons that are in your teacher's guide that talk about collaborative conversation and building community that address it a little bit. But for those teachers who want to take it a step further and talk about some of the vocabulary that might come up with the students need or have those conversations with our students, these are exploring perspective lessons that we will add to your benchmark universe account. So we have focused concepts, we have vocabulary, so those are all included. Now we're going to look at our small group text. These texts can be used for a variety of reasons. You can use them to teach skills, you can use them to build knowledge. They can be given as independent reading books, there's activities in the end. But the important thing about these books is these are authentic texts, they're authentic voices texts. We curated these amazing authors of trade books that you can go to Barnes & Noble and buy and ask them to write stories that reflect their students. So we have amazing authors, which I'm sure you probably recognize some of the names. But we're very proud of the fact that our small group text won the Best Equity Solution in 2022 because they reflect their students. We have novels. We know our upper grade teachers love novels, so we have a virtual novel included in each grade. And you can see these in the title. In addition to having the novels digitally, we have all sorts of resources for the teacher and the student as well. Everything you see in print is virtual. This is an example of the virtual student book. You can annotate, you can highlight, it'll read it to the students. You can put virtual sticky notes in there. Students can answer on the sticky notes, and when they do, you can pull up all of their responses. This is a fantastic tool. If your kids are techie, if you're techie, this is great because you can extend your lesson so much more with this. In addition to having it in Benchmark Universe, we have an app. Students can download the app. If they do not have access to internet at home, if they're somewhere with internet, they can download the text, take it home, it reads it on the app like a Kindle. It also has the ability to read it through. So that is still intact. So our topic says it build knowledge. We have our whole group text. We have our small group text. We have our read aloud text, but we also have Reader's Theater. How many people have done Reader's Theater? When I was teaching and I was doing Reader's Theater, many times there were not parts that my striving scholars could read. They were too high. I would have to either create a part for them or they had to be the tree, and that wasn't very fun. Our Reader's Theater recognizes that we have multiple needs in our classroom, so you have parts for all of your students. And many times your most striving students will have the biggest part because they're the students who need the most practice reading, the most practice with fluency, plus they also build knowledge. Anyone excited about this? Okay. So we're going to build knowledge across the grade when we looked at our knowledge topics in the beginning, but here's just a really great example of how it increases grade by grade. Nobody else has the vertical length benchmarks. This is great if you have siblings that are in multiple grades. They can go home and have conversations and realize they're learning about the same thing. If you have book readings and your older kids read with your younger kids, you can read about the same topics and then they can have those conversations. School bulletin boards, this fosters the development of a learning community. And again, it's a benchmark advantage. So, skills. When I was teaching, the resources I had, we had a unit, and in this unit, we might have taught compare and contrast. My kiddos had 3 or 4 weeks to master compare and contrast. If they didn't have compare and contrast, by the end of that unit, guess when they got to be retaught? Guess when they saw it again? The next year, unless I built in reteaching. Well, that's not the best thing for our kids. I mean, do we really want to say, better luck next year? So, Benchmark Advance has created a spiral of our skills. We know that our kiddos may not be ready to learn the first time we introduce it. So we have created a spiral of skills. So if you take your TRS that we just had, if you look at it and you pull the tab for Unit 1 open, please look at the back of it. This is where you will see your skills and strategies for your unit. If you looked at the one on the screen, it's comprehension to build knowledge. We teach skills and strategies in a cluster. As readers, do we ever use one singular skill or strategy when we're reading? No, we use multiple. If we can't identify main idea and details, we can't retell the story. So all of these skills and strategies work hand in hand. That's why we cluster them together. If you look at the dots, and some people refer to this as the dot chart, the red dots mean this is the first time this skill or strategy is being introduced. The black dots mean this is where it's being re-taught or revisited. The red checks mean it's being assessed on the unit assessment. So you can see, this is really important because it spirals through. So these are our skills for the whole year. This maps it out for this unit. But if I take compare and contrast from 4th grade and I trace it all the way to Unit 9, we have Unit 10. Look at all the times compare and contrast is revisited. Do all of our students have multiple opportunities to learn about compare and contrast? Now, if we have a student who learns it in Unit 1, it is not going to hurt them because they're going to continue to practice to prevent that decay of learning. So with the old program, with the old way things were written, it was a one and done. You never saw it again until the next year. Well, if they've learned compare and contrast in September and never revisited it, are they still going to know it in June? Probably not. So this always keeps it in the front of their mind. They never have their learning decay. And for our kiddos who didn't get it the first couple of times, it'll be revisited. Our organization is that we have our 3 weeks of instruction. Week 1, we have 2 short reads. This is where we're introducing vocabulary, introducing our skills and strategies, and beginning to build that knowledge. Week 2 and 3, we have extended reads. So week 2 is a little bit longer. Week 3 is even longer because this is that complex grade level text we want our students to access. The texts are also longer because we need our students to build their reading stamina. And this is what we use when our students annotate and read, and we do the gradual release model when we teach. So they are connected to the unit topics, and all of the reads scaffold. So like I said, the first week you have 2 shorter reads, then 1 longer read, another longer read, and then you have a piece of poetry. So in your packets, you have your text for close reading. You get 10 books, so you have 10 units of your text for close reading. What we've done, we didn't give you a huge, ginormous book. We peeled each layer off. So it's a doable resource. You can hand them out. They're easy for students to manage. But everybody has their own book. You get these books replaced each year for the life of the contract. We do not ship, like if you got 5 years, we do not ship all 5 years at once. You get 1 year and then they keep coming. This is what you use for the most of your instruction in the upper grades. This is your core text. Students get to own this. They annotate it, they highlight, they write in it, and then they get to take it home. And we teach them how to annotate appropriately. Most of you who are, well, there's not many people my age in here. For those of us who are older, when we went to school, college was the first chance we had to write in a book or highlight. And no one taught us the appropriate way to do that. So this is so important for our kids. Here's a kiddo annotating. This is truly a benchmark advantage because the students have the text and they have text at home. So our students are annotating, so they're reading the text, we're working with them, they're working independently, they're working with groups. As they annotate, it helps give us a window into their thinking. So by them responding to the text, circling words, writing what they think about, writing questions, it really helps us understand their learning. If you can take your teacher's guide, again, your TRS, and turn to the green tab, you will come to the introduction of our vocabulary. You actually have to turn it back one. It should look like this. So you're running. It just depends on which way you turn. So we need to introduce vocabulary to our students. We already introduced our knowledge word bank on the knowledge blueprint. Now we have to look at the vocabulary that's going to be in the text we're teaching. Everything that is highlighted yellow are specific vocabulary words where the instruction is already there. As a teacher, I will look at that list and say, oh, there's 2 words here that some of my kids may not know. I might want to include that into my instruction. If you turn to your red tab, you will see the instruction that we use when we introduce vocabulary. We use Isabel Beck, defining sample ask routine. It's been around for a very long time and it works. Our students respond to it. So we're going to give them the word, we're going to define it, we're going to give them an example, and then we're going to ask them a question so the answer they give us gives us whether they understand the word or not. One of the greatest tools we have in Benchmark Universe is our multilingual glossary. How many of you are multilingual learners in your class? Okay. How many of you have kids who are really visual? Yeah. This is great for all your kids, not just your multilingual learners. The glossary is organized by unit, by week of instruction, then you can pull down the text. Most of my teachers have this open. This is how they introduce their vocabulary. So they would say, boys and girls, we are going to learn our vocabulary for today. Our word is amphibians. Amphibian is a noun, and you would tell the definition, and then all frogs are amphibians. There is a quick introduction. You may do your next word, you may have them tell each other, an example. But you can use this and it's real fast. You don't need to spend a lot of time on your vocabulary because it's going to come up again and again. We do have a vocabulary practice text. So vocabulary is embedded right in your text for close reading. We also have additional vocabulary reads for additional practice. And you can see how it's embedded. There's our words, there's our definition. Online, we have an ebook resource. It's an ebook notebook. You have additional practice activities. You have wordplay. I forgot to tell the group this morning, there's additional grammar activities in there and language, and I can go online and show you that in a bit. But what is really different about Benchmark is we tie the vocabulary back to their life. So in that real world piece that I showed you, how it's tying it back to their community, where do they go to see nature, those are the kind of pieces and activities they have to do with vocabulary. Our comprehension, all of our strategies are taught with the gradual release model of I do, you do, we do. So for guided practice, we have modeled, now we want to do it with them. Because this is on grade level complex text, we might have to stack it for all of our students to access it. At the end of our lesson, we have an apply understanding, which is the you do. We want our students to tell us they understand what we just taught them. So here's modeling example. Model how you would answer the question. The blue talk is the teacher talk. You do not have to read that completely. It is a guide for you if you want one. We do have some new teachers that absolutely love it. They've never taught the grade level. It's also nice because if you get distracted in your class, because nothing ever happens when you're trying to teach. Have you ever forgotten what you were saying? Yeah. This is great because it's right there for you. Because there's never fire drills, kids talking, parents knock on the door. So this is great. But it's also great for those teachers who want to make sure they're delivering the instruction the way it should be. So this is a teacher. He is modeling in grades 2 through 5.
Friends, I'm going to lead this first section, and I want to remind you, as we read today, we're really focusing on most important plot events. I'm going to challenge you to explain how you know it's an important plot event. Sitting up straight, tracking text, pencils ready. A week later, Esperanza put yet another bundle of asparagus on the table after work. The tall and feathery asparagus plants seemed to be as unrelenting as Isabel's desire to be queen. The workers picked the spears from the fields, and a few days later, the same fields had to be picked again because new shoots were already showing their heads. And Isabel talked of nothing else except the possibility of wearing the winner's crown of flowers on her head.
So he'll say what he's doing.
Just have a question pop into my head here. Is it some sort of a contest?
So
Is
by
it
modeling,
clean?
we're
Or is it maybe
showing
like
the
a beauty
students how
contest?
our thinking
She says
is
wearing
as
the
we're
winner's
reading.
crown. So I'm just going to answer the quick question there. I don't quite understand right now what Isabel is hoping for.
So now we are going to do that at practice. So that is our model. We have modeled for our students. Now we want to do it with them. We're going to release some of that responsibility. We do have questions we can ask our students that drive this part of the instruction, and the depths of knowledge of all the questions are identified. We also give you sample responses. So because we know sometimes classroom life can just be organized chaos, given on the day. And now the teacher's going to model and give that release of responsibility away.
I'd like you to work on paragraph 6 through 13, that next page. I want you to work at table groups, partner read, and I want you to be looking for main plot events, okay? Partner reading at table groups, paragraph 6 through 13. What questions do you
I
have?
just modeled, now he's
Okay, let's
asking
keep
them
going.
to do it in partner
Yeah,
and
keep
table
going here.
groups.
That's because of the
And
wind.
because
Okay, let's keep
not
going.
all of our students can access that complex text by reading in partner groups, they can. So here they are. This is the guided practice. They're talking, they're thinking, they're writing questions. So this is the text that's annotated. I don't know if you can see, this is one from technology, but you can see, at 8, 9, this part was about the gramophone and the discs were made out of vinyl. They circle the words they don't know. They talked about this on page 10. But my personal favorite, that is what I just read, but my personal favorite is in this one. What in the world is cassette? My kids don't know. So this really gives you a window into their learning. So now we've modeled, we've given them some of the responsibility. Now we want them to show us that they understand it. So they're going to apply their understanding. This one has them adding to the blueprint. There's different tasks for them to do on different days, but we allow them time to go back and fill in their blueprint. Sometimes we want to take it a little bit further. So we have culminating tasks in research and inquiry projects. Some districts do not, or some teachers even, do not do the research and inquiry project the first year because it's a lot. That is okay. Some districts ask their library media specialists to help out. Some teachers have their high flyers do that. It all depends, but these resources are here for you, and it's really nice because it gives the students some voice and choice of what they want to do. They can create a nature entry log. There's other pieces they can do, and the research project lets them dig deeper into something they like. So these are some of the activities they've done. This is one of the culminating tasks. They wrote a brochure. This is very creative. There's a washer with clothes coming out of it. So these are all student-directed projects that build knowledge and demonstrate what we can. We do have additional support for multilingual learners, which you'll see more. We always have support in our program. And then they can even extend it a little bit further. For our students who struggle with comprehension, we do have a connected multi-tiered support system for them called Steps to Advance. This takes the core text, scaffolds it to an amplified text of vocabulary practice text. So we build our knowledge, we work on the vocabulary, we work to an amplified text that is a chunked piece of the core text, and that helps our students reach beyond grade level complex text. This is used by reading specialists, it's used by interventionists, special ed teachers, and I even have some districts that use it in the classroom for our most struggling scholars. So that is our knowledge building. Let's talk a little bit about writing. Our reading and writing are connected. You are going to use the same mentor texts that you did for reading, for writing, you're going to read them now as a writer. So you're changing the lens you're looking at. So this is a Birds Free Lunch. So we do two forms of process writing. We have our text-based process writing, which our students need for social studies and science, and they'll need as they get up more through high school and college. And then we have self-selected process writing. We make our anchor charts for this. We model this with our students, and we also supply explicit graphic organizers for them as they do it. So if we looked at our text-based writing, you can see it's almost half a year. This is grade 4. Benchmark does an exquisite job of teaching writing. One of the things that most teachers say about Benchmark Advanced, and Torrington has said this more than once, this is the best, most explicit writing instruction we have ever used. So for week 1, we are going to write an informative essay. We are going to describe the appearance and behavior of woodpeckers. We have to include an introduction. We have to include facts and details from a Birds Free Lunch, one of our mentor tests, and the World of Woodpeckers, which is a knowledge building video. And we need to write a conclusion. So there's our resources, there's an exemplar, but as the teacher, we're going to write this together as a class. We're going to read these texts. I'm going to ask our students for details. I'm going to write an exemplar as well. You could just use this one, but if you do things together, it's more meaningful for the students. So this is all done in week 1. Week 2, we have the student parallel writing problem. They're writing an informative essay describing the behavior of chipmunks. They have to write an introduction, facts and details from the story of the chipmunk and the video World of Chipmunk, and write a conclusion. Is that almost the same task that we did in week 1? Yes. Why did we change it to chipmunks? Why did we just have them do it the first week? So if I did my model and I said to my classroom, boys and girls, now I want you to write an essay on woodpeckers, what would a lot of the kids do? They would write the same thing. They would copy it. Because we wrote a similar one and now we're giving them instruction on what to do, they have to use the skills we used in week 1, but they can't copy my work. They have to think and write on their own because we're building readers, writers, and thinkers.
Good question.
Yes.
For week 1, when you're doing the mentor piece
Mhm.
with the class, is there any opportunity for the students to write anything after, or is it only whole group
No,
them helping you
we
write?
would have them write. We would have them go in and we would have them write sentences and we would share. It would be a collaborative piece.
Okay.
That's a great question. With this, they still have the explicit graphic organizers. There's rubrics and checklists for them to use as well. Then we have our self-selected process writing. Week 1, we have explicit graphic organizers for the students to use. They're going to organize their ideas. Week 2, they're going to draft and revise. In week 3, they're going to revise, edit, and publish. During this time, there's all sorts of teacher support. There's all sorts of student support, explicit graphic organizers, checklists, and rubrics as well. But we can't teach writing without grammar. A lot of teachers like to teach the grammar before your writing lessons because we want our students to include the grammar in the writing. So we have the explicit instruction for our grammar here. There are additional opportunities to practice grammar, but the best place to practice it is in the writing. And I know that was a big, long section. I am going to take a breath. I want you to digest it for a minute and have a short, 1-minute conversation with your table partner, shoulder partner, about something you liked that you just saw. And then I'll ask for a couple people to report after. Okay, can we end our conversation? finish the presentation on time, so review time. Who would like to share out? I heard some great things being said. Sherry knows. I want her to say what she was talking about.
Well, I am fairly new to third grade, so
Nice big teacher voice.
my opinion, I don't know what counts, but
It's on.
I like that they can actually write in it and highlight, and then it's something tangible that I can show the parent and be like, look at this and how they're applying this, and as it goes through, just like build it. I just like I know digital is important, but I like that handwritten. I can see it. They're highlighting. I can see their thinking.
I am a print girl. I do not have a Kindle. I love having the book. I think it's fun for the kiddos to have the books. Something else somebody liked.
I like how connected the writing and the reading are together, and how important the vocabulary is built into that, which will help in the process of not only the reading, but as they're transferring it over into the writing.
Absolutely, because we want our kids to use those amazing vocabulary words in their writing. So it has to be in their reading. It has to be in those conversations. Anybody else have something they're dying to share? Okay. So now, that was the big long section. Now we're going to talk about foundational skills. How many of you have striding readers that need foundational skill work? We all do. So now we're looking at the yellow side of the road, our word recognition. We're going to teach our kiddos to read. Hopefully by the time you get them in third grade, they have their basic decoding skills down. Now we are shifting our instruction. We still have whole group, we still have small group if you need it, but now we're shifting to word study. We are going to look at Greek and Latin roots. We are going to talk about multisyllabic words. This is all done compliments of Dr. Wiley Levins. Anyone know Wiley's name? No Wiley. Wiley is probably one of the biggest phonics guru. He does research, he's in schools every day, he's a consulting author on this. He wrote and made sure our word study foundational skills section was completely science and reading based, completely research based. He wanted to make sure it was explicit and specific instruction. He also ensured that we had a meaningful scope and sequence, that it was sequential. We start from the known, we go to the unknown. We start from the bigger units, we go to the smaller units. One of the things that's different than most companies, we teach phonics and word study to 6th grade. A lot of programs stop at 2nd or 3rd grade. But Wiley also knows how our students learn. His research shows that students need 4 to 6 weeks to cement their learning and for their learning to stick. So he built in our spiral review. So our skills spiral 4 to 6 weeks. And again, if your kiddo gets it the first or second time around, it's just preventing learning decay. For those kiddos who may not get it to the 4th or 5th time, they're going to have opportunities to learn. So our phonics and word study lesson, if you turn to your yellow tab in your TRS, you will see one of your whole group instructions. This is where we're reviewing long A, the different spellings of it, and we're introducing our big word reading strategy. That is in your routines unit. Those routines come up again and again. So we're going to do our instruction. After all of our whole group instruction, there's opportunities for small group instruction because we know we have students that need a little bit more. For those kids who need even more, Wiley has created this phonological awareness development book for us. It lives online. There are routines, there are activities, there's an activity day, and there's diagnostic assessments for it. You also have online, you have 3 full days of whole group word study lessons. You have 2 days of small group lessons. Some weeks, teachers need all 5 of those lessons to be whole group, and it's not something that kiddos know. You also have sorts built in. So see here, we talked about suffixes, we're reviewing long vowels, Greek and Latin roots, closed syllable patterns. Those are all things our kids need. So we're going to practice our word study right in our text for close reading because it makes sense. We want them decoding and using those skills in what they're reading. We also have word sorts. So in your word study resource book online, in addition to the lessons you're applying, you will see sorts. So we're going to model, then we're going to practice. and then we have our sorts. We also have different phonics resources for you. On your table, you should all have a sound spelling card. Every grade level receives a set of the sound spelling cards. These are what the primary teachers use all the time in their instruction. If you have a card with a green band around it, this means the sound is transferable in Spanish. This is great for our multilingual learners. But what makes these cards so magical is the instruction on the back. If you flip your card over, you will see a chant, you will see articulation. And this helps your students because so many times students put an extra sound or an extra syllable onto their sound. And right now, your students that you have are the kids who are in K1 and 2 when COVID hit. Everyone wore masks. They couldn't see how your mouth was forming the letters. You also have sample words with the sound in different positions. There's action rhymes, and we have support for our multilingual learners. And on some cards, there's tongue twisters. We also have our e-pocket chart. This is, you know, the old-fashioned blue pocket charts that we all had. This is a digital version of this. So there are some pre-made sorts, but you can go in, you can create your own sorts, you can assign it to the students. They can do closed sorts, they can do buddy sorts, they can sort by categories. There's blending activities. The possibilities are endless with the e-pocket chart. We also have bite-sized nuggets of PD by Wiley Evans himself. So if you have really never taught detailed phonics before, you're like, how do I do the blending lessons? What are the different kinds of blending? You go online and there is a little snippet about blending, the 2 types of blending, tips for success. So you will listen to Wiley speak. There will be a model. It includes the blending routines. And then there'll be either Wiley or a teacher modeling it for you. These are priceless because they're there and we all know Wiley knows what he's talking about. And you can watch these in your PJs and no one will ever know that you went on and checked out things. Word sorts, this is the word play. The kids need to work with the words, they need to play with the words. So we have closed sorts, we have common feature sorts, and then we have buddy sorts for our kids. We want them to be active in phonics. The magic of the phonics in Benchmark is the application. So Wiley's research says 50% of phonics instruction is when the skills are taught in isolation. The other 50%, which is where the magic and the learning happens, is authentic application in reading and writing. So this is where we're taking what we're learning and we're applying it in the word study text in our text for close reading. Online, you have additional decodable text for all grades. So you have an accountable text that's decodable, and then you have an interactive text, which is decodable what we want them to annotate. For our 3rd graders, we have Dynamite decodables. Our 2nd grade Dynamite decodables were written in a way that 3rd grade can use them. They are, I don't have a 2nd grade calculator. They look like a real book. They do not look like a 1st grade decodable book that is about Tim hitting the ball. They are exquisite books. They are content-based. Your students would actually love them. So one of the reasons we do phonics, we practice phonics, is we want our kids to efficiently and fluently blend words and be able to read. So we reread our decodable passages to build fluency. And then, of course, the application and more writing. Help the students write their opinion of a storm chaser's job. Is the weather too dangerous? Is it necessary for weather prediction? So they're going to talk to write. How many of you have kids in your class where you've done the writing lesson, then you're like, okay, boys and girls, go back and write. And you have kids that sit there, I don't know what to write. Anybody? Yeah. So we do an oral rehearsal. We ask students to talk to write. If they talk to their partner or their table buddies about what they're going to write, they're more successful getting it down on paper because they've thought about it, they've talked about it, now they can write about it. So we do this in the primary grades, but we continue to do this in the upper grades. So we talked about whole group. Now we're going to talk about some small group scaffolds for a word study. So you have 2 full days of small group instruction You will be using the interactive text, you'll be practicing the reading big word strategy. There are weeks that you may have to use these small group with your whole class if they don't know this. They're flexible, but they're there for you. And we're decoding and then modeling and practicing. We always want to extend our learning. So the extend the learning is here. We're activating that knowledge, we're guessing the words, and then having the students read it. This instruction for the upper grades and this explicit instruction is a benchmark advantage. No other program can touch the phonics and word study at all, let alone the upper grades. So this is a huge benefit for your students. We know we all have students who struggle. Phonics intervention is an intensive intervention program for those students who are 2 or more years below their grade level phonics continuum. So unfortunately, there are 5th graders whose phonics skills are about a 1st or 2nd grade level. This is the program for them. It's intensive. It's a 10-day unit. After 10 days of intensive instruction, they should have mastered that skill. What we do after 5 days, we do an assessment. And if the students have it, then we move on because there's reteaching. If they don't have it, maybe more, you have 5 more days to teach. I have seen so much growth with this program with students. Students have made years of growth within a school year because it's so explicit. You give the QPA and the QSA to pinpoint the starting point for these students, and it gives you what they know and what they don't know. So it's really specific and tailored for our students. So that's our foundational skills. I want you to think for a minute, talk with your table partners again about something you liked or something you thought would be beneficial for your kids that you saw in the foundational skills section. I know it's afternoon, it's the home stretch, it's warm out. Yes.
How long are those lessons?
Half hour. And typically, interventionists, special ed, reading teachers should that, but I have teachers that have lost their focus, and if they don't know where the students are really low, classroom teacher. Okay, let's end our conversations. I would love a couple of different people to share out. Who would like to share out what they liked? Or even what your group talked about? I'm going to pick the middle table. Oh, you will. Go ahead.
I liked these, not necessarily the constitutions for the upper grades, but there was some of there were Bible teams and
Yes.
whatnot. I thought that these were kind of nice for those more complex.
Absolutely. We hope we don't have to do that.
Yeah, but up there I saw some of those.
Yeah, there are, and there's more in the packet. Something else you liked or thought would be beneficial for your students? 5th grade row, you've been very quiet. Does someone want to share? Just say thankful I didn't make you do antics.
I said that I liked that the routines were built in so that, incoming 4th graders would be familiar, but let's say somebody had pumpkin, went over to orange jab, it would be familiar.
Absolutely. Everyone is using the same language, everyone's using the same routines. So when your kids do move from school to school, they don't have to start over. That's a very good point. Thank you. Okay, folks, this is the home stretch. Let's talk about our students. We have multiple needs in our classrooms, so Benchmark Advance is set up to help you be a responsive teacher to meet the needs of all of your kids. We have multiple advanced advantages, that's why it's checkmarked first. So let's talk about the first one. Ways to scaffold our first reading. When we read this text, we look at it, we know it's complex grade level text. So there is a good chance we're going to have to scaffold it for our students. So we have an if-then chart. If students are English language learners who need support with vocabulary, then do this. So we have 3 of those. There may be times where you want your students to listen to it first. They can listen to it on the computer. If you're using Steps to Advance, which is the comprehension program I showed you a few minutes ago, I have teachers that start that a few days before their classroom teacher because it helps pre-teach the vocabulary and pre-teach some of the knowledge skills. So those kiddos who are usually the ones who don't want to participate in class are the ones raising their hand because they already know what the teacher's talking about. Not that they're bored, but they can participate. So it's front-loaded now. We also have IELD. Now I know some of you have multilingual learners in your classroom, and this support will help you, but the big picture is we're all English language learners. We're just all on different levels of language acquisition. So these supports that are built in can work with any of your students, but they're designed for students who might need light support. So then we also have moderate support for different students, and then we might have students who need substantial support. There is an integrated ELD support in every lesson. It is at the most linguistically and cognitively challenging part of the lesson. And here we know vocabulary is difficult sometimes for our multilingual learners. We have our applied to understanding. Remember when we saw that? You will see underneath the key to access. We may have students who can't go back and fill out that knowledge blueprint by themselves. So they may dictate it to us and we may scribe it for them. We may have students who may not be able to write a paragraph, but they can write 2 sentences and draw a picture. So this gives an alternative path for our students to show us they understand what we just taught. Homeschool connection, that's important, right? Silly question, I know. So our homeschool connection, we have letters that go home at the beginning of every unit. They have 4 different activities that the parents or families can do with their kiddos. It tells what you're doing in the unit. We also have it available in 10 different languages, so your families at home can read it. We also have, if you look at the back of your text for close reading, there is a calendar. These are activities for your families to do when your students take this book home. Now, you can copy this or you can show the students how to access it at home if your families want to do some activities while you're still in the unit. You can use it later. But it goes home at the end of the 3 weeks with your students, and then there's activities for them to do. Assessment. Assessment is important so we can monitor the progress of our students and we can drive our instruction. We have multiple forms of assessment. We have different types of formative assessment. We have diagnostic, we have screeners, progress monitors. We have our summative assessments. So we have weekly and unit assessments. The unit assessments mirror the Smarter Balance test. So most of our districts that use Benchmark Advance do not have to stop instruction the month before the test to do test prep. It is built in. In fact, the kids usually say their state test was easier than Benchmark Advance, but they're ready for it. Our weekly assessments, some districts don't give many of those. They might give the week 2 if they feel, yeah, I want to check to see how my students are doing. We also have interim assessments. We have performance-based assessments. So our interim assessments, there are 4. The first one's given in the beginning of the year. Second one is given after Unit 3. Third one is given after Unit 6. The fourth one is given at the end of the year. So interim 1 gives you a baseline. Interim 4 is the same test. So when your students take it after they've had a year of instruction, you can compare apples to apples and you can see their growth. That is so important. And we have multiple tests because we should not rely just on one sole test. We want to make sure we're collecting information from our students. And if Susie's having a bad day on the day she took a unit test, that may not be reflective of what she really knows. So it's important to look at all of our data. Our assessments can be given online, so we would assign them to our students. There are multiple accommodations that can be assigned. It can be read to the students if they have it in their IEP. They can highlight. There's a line reader. There's, it's in the split screen. So there's so many accommodations that you can do. But that is great for the students. What is great for you as the teacher is if you give it online or you upload the student data, it will populate reports for you. So you can progress monitor your students. You can pull reports by student. You can pull reports by standard. Beth and Steve can pull reports by the district, so they could pull all grade 3 from all buildings and find out how the kids are doing and compare and contrast. They could pull all grade 2. You can pull it any way you really need the data. We have a whole bunch of reports that is another PD session. There is some PD modules, which I'll show you as well. This is a fantastic tool. It's also fantastic for when you have to have those conversations with parents. And you can show them, this is the growth your child is making. This is where I'm concerned. But if you have students who need more, once the scores are in, you have a grouping feature. This groups students with similar needs together. It gives you recommendations for reteaching. And then it tells you exactly where to go in the program to reteach. And I will talk about that because when we reteach, we will reteach in small group instruction. In our small group instruction, we can do grade level standard work and we can use our textbook this week. We can do foundational skills. We can do the word sorts, work on the word study text. We may need to do reteaching. So I'm going to show you where these are in your teacher guide. You can take your teacher guide, go back to the Unit 1 tab, pull it over. Then you have a page that's folded. Turn it over one more time. Nope, don't open it, just turn. There you go. On the right-hand side, you have a page that says Intervention and Reteaching. You have intervention and reteaching books for all your areas of reading. These are here for you to use in small group even before you do assessment. So if you are doing your comprehension lesson and you have a handful of students who really aren't getting it, you don't need to wait to the assessment to do reteaching. Use these books, pull a small group, and reteach that skill. It tells you exactly where the teacher instruction is and exactly where the student pages are. Student pages are in the back of the booklet. But do we just reteach and let the kids go? We want to make sure they've learned what we were reteaching. So there are quick checks to give before we release them back to something else. That is so important for our kids, and as building classroom teachers have access to this. AIS teachers, reading teachers, coaches will have access to this. And then last but not least, we have, sorry, I forgot to click on that top. We have our knowledge building small group texts. Those are texts that you had in your little packet. So these are the small group building texts that won the diversity award. You have 6 copies of these in your classroom kit. You will also have teacher guides. These teacher guides include instruction for our multilingual learners and other support. You will receive a text evidence question card with this. This card is probably most teachers' favorite piece of it because there are text evidence cards, questions. So it opens up, all the questions are inside. Some teachers copy it, cut it up, and have kids work in partners to do it. The depth of knowledge questions are on it. If you are techie, you don't have to be, you can copy and paste these text evidence questions, put them on a sticky note in the virtual book, the ebook, on the page where the answer is. Then when the students are reading it online, they can fill in the answers. So these are a wealth of knowledge. You can use them for all different things. So when you're pulling small group instruction, what are some things your kiddos can be doing? Your kiddos can be rereading different texts. They can be choosing their own text and reading independently. They could be doing their word sorts. They could be working on writing. So there's a variety of activities they can do. We also have purposeful center activity cards online that you can look at to provide activities connected to your instruction. So our reader's theater is something else you can do in small group, or that could be an activity the kids could be practicing together. So you have your reader's theater that we talked about before, as well as the teacher handbook. But this is everyone's usually favorite part. How many of you have students either above grade level or below grade level in your class? Yeah, everybody does. What is nice, not only do you have access to your grade level resources online, you have access to every grade level in your building. So if you're a 4th grade teacher and you have a kiddo who's just striving so hard but they can't read a grade level text, you can go down to 3rd grade or to 2nd grade and assign them a text from a different grade level. And no one will know because it's online. You can dip down into the other intervention for the grade levels, but you have access to all of it at no charge. It is there for you to step for your students. Like I mentioned before, we do have connected multi-tiered support systems. Everything is connected by skills and strategies. Everything is connected by knowledge stream. The one piece I didn't talk about is our Express, and that is our language program for our ENL students. This is set up very similarly to Steps to Advance, except it begins in kindergarten, but it scaffolds the text in chunks according to language. So it works on the language acquisition. It also works on phonics. So it takes that language barrier out for our students. We are the only company that has a tight story with all of our multi-tiered support systems connected to our core. So no matter if they're in the classroom going to reading, you're using the same routines, you're using the same vocabulary, you're using the same or similar stories, and you're still building knowledge on the same language stream. That is truly a benchmark advantage, but it's an advantage for our kids. So hopefully today you heard how Benchmark Advance fits into your normal literacy block. Your materials will come very organized to help you. But let's look at what a sample data looks like. I forgot I added this slide. So for our upper grade level teachers, you just saw all of our other resources. These are the 2 resources we use the most. Your teacher resource system and your student book. This is essentially your whole book instruction. So even though you have additional resources, this is what you will be using the most. And let's look at a day. What a day may look like. So let me start with it. So the teacher is starting with a read aloud. She is introducing the read aloud. Now she is going to model, or he's modeling, his comprehension lesson in his text or close reading. The students are following along. Now they're doing guided practice. So he may, actually, I'm sorry, he was doing small group instruction. And now we have our phonics. The kids are working independently with their small group text. And then we're going to have writing. So we may pull them all back together, we may confer with them, but you can change the order of your day. The only thing you have to do is have reading before you have writing, because you're reading and writing are connected together. You cannot write about a text if you haven't read it. So I hope you have seen all of our benchmark advantages, which includes integrating the skills and strategies, our evidence-based instruction, the engaging student materials that our kids want to read, the support we have for all of our learners, and the fact that the program is effective in numerous districts. It's setting your kids up for success. All of this would not be possible without professional development. So we have multiple kinds of professional development. We have in-person professional development, where you will have a consultant come in and train you by grade level or grade level spans. If your time frame does not fit into one of the pacings we have in the TRS, our consultant manager will help make a pacing guide that will fit for you. So we come in, we do initial implementation. We come in, we do follow-up trainings. We have small group topics, we have vocabulary. We have a catalog of topics to pick from. We also do train the trainer modules. We do admin. We also do classroom modeling, and we do side-by-side coaching. So we do a lot of different things in person. Now, for someone who likes to sit back and do some training, we have PD modules. One of our consultants likes to call this PD in her PJs, because you can do it from anywhere. There are modules about what we would come and instruct you in for the initial implementation. For those of you who like to see a model classroom, I have a lot of teachers who use this before they teach a lesson when they're new, or if you ever have a lesson like me once in a while, you're like, I do not think that's how it was supposed to go. You can go here and watch a lesson and be an instructor. They're very helpful. And they're in real classrooms. It's not like the perfect classroom with 3 kids in front of a teacher. It's a real classroom. And here's an example. So we want our students to be active learners. We want them to be engaged. We want them to be happy. We hope that you will choose Benchmark because we want to be your partner in instilling those lifelong literacy skills with your students. So if you didn't sign in, please sign in so I have your email to push out resources. And if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. Yes.
Is there a way that we can have access to watching what reading and writing looks like before making decisions?
Yes, I will, with your emails, I will send out the digital access and you'll be able to go in and watch the advanced and action lessons.
Okay.
You're welcome. Was there another question back here?
No, sorry, I was scratching my head.
That's okay.
I sound like this kid, but it's true.
You've been sitting a very long time. Yes.
Another one. About how much time does reading take and writing take? I'm just trying to think of like.
Ideally, to do everything from your read aloud to your writing, including small groups, it's designed for 90 to 120 minutes. Usually our upper grade teachers have closer to 90. I have districts that have less than that, and they are knocking it out of the park. So if you do have a different time, in the front of your teacher guide, your TRS, you have like 2 to 3 pages in. You have samples of pacing. If you have time that does not fall into those, we will sit down and we will work with you in professional development. So it is on Roman numeral 10 and 11. And really the thing that makes the difference in the time frame is how many small groups you do a day and how much time you give the students to write after you do instruction. And like I said before, you can do your read aloud at any point in the day. So sometimes that gives you one of the 230. Yeah. Other questions?
During the writing portion, are they working on just the one piece and editing that one piece really to bring publication, or are there multiple pieces that they can have at one time going through that process?
If they didn't finish that piece, they could be working on pieces and more than one piece at a time. Plus, we always respond to text, so that's not the only writing they do each day. Other questions? And I know Beth has directions for you for exploring the activity.